Welcome to the Life Science Success Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I am a digital marketer in life sciences. And before we get started today with our interview with John Phillips, I wanted to also just play a quick message from our sponsor.
Imagine being at the epicenter of the next breakthrough in biotechnology. That moment could happen for you this October at Bio on the Bayou 2025, where Southern innovation meets scientific excellence in the heart of New Orleans. Over 300 of the brightest minds in biotech are coming together for 2 extraordinary days in New Orleans. We're talking groundbreaking research from powerhouses like Tulane, Auburn, the University of Mississippi, Xavier University of Louisiana, and LSU Health. Expect revolutionary technologies, cutting-edge research, and industry-shaping expert panels that you won't find at any other event, plus networking opportunities that could transform your career. This isn't just another conference. It's an intensive 2-day summit where real partnerships form. We leverage the cutting-edge Partnering One platform to ensure that you'll connect with exactly the right people, whether you're seeking investors, research partners, or your next big opportunity. The future of biotechnology is being shaped right here in the broader Gulf South and having a global impact. Will you be part of it? Mark your calendar for October 28th and 29th. Head to bioonthebayou.com right now and secure your spot for the most exciting biotechnology event of 2025. The next breakthrough could be yours. Bio on the Bayou 2025. Register today.
In this episode of the Life Science Success Podcast, my guest is John Phillips. He's a seasoned global leader with over 30 years of experience in biotechnology, pharmaceuticals, healthcare, and he's the president at InnovaPath Consulting. Welcome, John. It's great to have you here.
Great to talk with you today, Don. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I really look forward to our conversation. I feel like there's a lot of these sort of podcasts that I've done where, we talk about people's, journey and different things and inflection points. So would you mind just spending a little bit of time telling us a little bit about your background and how did you become involved in life sciences?
Yes, happy to. So my career spans over 35 years, and it does cross 2 industries. So early in my career, I was on the healthcare side, and think medical device is the easiest way to put it. My pivot into the pharma and biotech came via an engineering firm, actually system integration, process automation, design, build, and led their life sciences business unit. So I got to see how everything was manufactured, whether it was drug substance, drug product, all dosage forms. I also managed their chemical division, so I had responsibility for the entire business unit. So that would be sales, marketing, operations, project management. So the full cross-functional team, including engineering and all the operations side of that. So it was a really catapulted me into the industry and gave me a breadth of experience around obviously the pharma and biotech space, and also process, and how important systems are in integration and efficiencies. And really from there, I've been in the CDMO space, whether it's drug substance, drug product, large, small molecule, again, all the dosage forms, from discovery all the way through packaging. It's clinical, commercial manufacturing, in varying roles within organizations, whether it was sales leadership, organizational leadership. So yeah, a little background on my journey, but it did start from an engineering firm, and went on from there.
It's very, very interesting, overall. And I feel like we were talking before the show, as well, just about what it takes to get into life sciences as well. Just love to hear, kind of the key challenges that you might have faced, and also how did you overcome them, but also where do you feel like your biggest opportunity came, to come into life sciences?
Yeah, I think it's a hard industry to move into, whether you're moving into the pharma biotech, maybe you're moving into the tech space. I think the different industries are very specific on what it is they're looking for. Um, I when I look at individuals, I look at the skill set they're going to bring. Are they going to be able to bring a different thought to the organization? There are very transferable skills. Uh, again, crossing industries as I did, and I think we talked a little bit about this. Somebody needs to give you a chance, and is okay with developing and training you. Not every company is built for being able to develop and train people. So, depending on the size, the scale of the organization, how far they are along in their journey to be able to bring somebody in that they say, okay, this might take a minute, but then is going to catapult them into into the leader that they know they're going to be, bringing those transferable skills. So overcoming that, I kept my mouth shut a lot and listened a lot, and it was a tremendous opportunity coming into this industry. But I do say somebody gave me a chance, but they did look at the track record that I had and the experience that I had in developing developing commercial organizations, and the success that I had in building something from the ground up. And that's where the engineering firm, took a look at me and said, okay, uh, I have that cross-functional experience, and then they needed to teach me this industry. But uh, nice going into the engineering and the manufacturing side of it, because I got to see how everything was made. And I'm a quick study when I get to look at it and say, yes, this is what
Right.
it's going to do, and how are we going to automate it or build it. So it was an absolute incredible opportunity for me. And I look back and can't believe the things that we built, that we engineered, that we improved from a continuous improvement perspective. So it was probably one of my favorite roles, because it was almost endless of what we could do. Um, but we needed to keep it within our core expertise as well.
Yeah, I think I mean I have kind of a similar story, right? I mean, most of my background started in healthcare. I was at General Electric. They purchased Amersham Pharmacia, so I mean, more or less, whenever I got my introduction to pharmaceutical manufacturing, it was through trial by fire, more or less. I had to quickly come up to speed and be able to talk to clients at their level, about the
Hmm.
challenges that they might be having. And similar sort of thing. I mean, I came in with a set of skills that people understood what those skills were, and they said, hey, look, the skills that we're hiring you for are transferable. The ones that are not today is that you have a significant gap in what it is that we do, but we certainly think that you have the ability to learn this industry. And I spent a lot
Hmm.
of time with an individual by the name of Matt Berry at General Electric, just in the background in a lab, trying to understand, okay, so what is column packing all about? What is a bed support? What essentially does chromatography do at the end of the day? I mean, essentially stepping through the entire drug development process so that I could at least see it and talk about it, at some level of expertise as well. So yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you have to have some level of base skill that people are
Hmm.
willing to invest and roll the dice in and say, hey, look, we believe that this person, would be able to learn. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think when you have an organization around you, and I'll just call it that, the subject matter experts, being on the commercial side, or leading the business unit there, I didn't have to have all the answers. So I purposefully wanted to rely on the subject matter experts to be able to demonstrate we have the ability, the capability, and the know-how to do it. So it was a good matchup, and we were very successful.
Very good. So, I mean, how has your leadership approach evolved over the years, and what are some of the key lessons that you learned from your experiences?
Yeah, I think over the years, one of the significant challenges I think organizations face is defining and building that solid foundation for successful, sustainable growth. Um, and what I mean by that is they're taking, if they're growing as an organization organically, maybe through acquisition, at the beginning they're taking their current technical operational capabilities as well as their existing infrastructure, and then they need to shape that into the future organization that's going to align with their strategic vision, and being successful now and readying it for growth. So I think when I look back on my career, that was certainly something I see that repeats itself as organizations are growing, they're expanding, is making sure we're ready for the now, and making sure that they're forward thinking. I think a lot of companies pursue kind of an aggressive expansion without ensuring those teams, the systems, the processes are equipped and ready to sustain the desired growth throughout the different phases of their growth and their development. And I kind of talk about that in the essence of a CDMO at this point. And then certainly when you're looking at sponsors, uh, the same things kind of hold true if they're a startup company, uh, and most likely outsourcing most of their capabilities. It's really looking at, are they going with the right organization, and they grow again from people perspective, and capabilities if they're going to start adding on. I think it's important to realize that your growth isn't just about increasing revenue. I think a lot of smaller organizations, we just need more sales. We need more sales. Um, but it does require a holistic business transformation across leadership, talent development, processes, and technology, and building it for the future. Again, as I said.
Yeah, so I mean, it's such an important point as well because scaling an organization isn't just about what's in the books for your current sales. It is, can your organizational capacity actually handle it, and will you be able to deliver or not, and does that come through as well in the things that you're um in the things that you're selling. I mean, there aren't many places I can think of in our space where people, you know, don't really deeply examine, hey, is this organization really capable of handling us? Or, are we going to wind up with, something that in the end is not going to help us deliver?
Yeah, and I think my goodness, certainly so much has changed over the, call it the 2 decades that I have been in this space, uh, and the outsourcing has been very strong since I've been in here, and has continued to grow. So again, as you said, making sure your organization is poised for that kind of growth, and developing the right leaders, again, not just for today, but for tomorrow. Um, and making sure that you're building an organization and a culture that is okay embracing change, because it is going to happen. Um, so yeah, it's certainly been interesting for the past 20 years that I've been in this industry directly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that's a great transition to my next question, which is that you both work with small businesses and Fortune 100 companies. What sort of differences have you observed in leadership and strategy with these types of organizations?
Yeah, the one thing I see that is consistent, with a smaller organization versus a large organization is, and I'll put it simply first, and then I'll dive into this a little bit, is the speed versus structure of those organizations. In smaller companies, decisions tend to happen quickly, but sometimes aren't constructing the foundation for the growth. They're more transactional than transformative, because they are looking for that sometimes that quick win. I think in Fortune 100 companies, the systems, the processes, the scalability, they're more established, so they've gone through that journey, and they prioritized that scalability and making sure the systems and processes were robust enough as they handled the growth. And again, that's with people and the infrastructure that you put in there. Um, the balance of that is sometimes that structure will slow decision making down, but it does ensure long term sustainability. So I think it's an important journey that companies need to go on. As you look at those larger organizations, the recommendation I always have for them is, in this industry, there is a need for agility, being adaptable. And certainly we talked about scalable, and I think the larger ones have the better shot at the scalability sometimes. But then you pull that efficiency back into this. And it's really the challenge becomes applying that right balance between structure uh, to small organizations without sacrificing speed and infusing that agility into the larger organization. So um, I think the advice for smaller organizations is make sure as you grow, you can get out of your own way to make those decisions as you did early on. Uh, and all the while, and this is a tall order for both size companies. On top of all of that, there's the need to maintain regulatory compliance, achieve operational efficiencies, and that continuous improvement. So in this industry, an ever changing industry, it's a tall order, and it's not easy to do.
Yeah, and I mean, I always sort of, wonder, as companies go through these different phases, it seems to me like the the best way to, um, sort of understand this process is to examine the companies that are just ahead of you, um, or the companies that are just, larger than you. Maybe you have an aspirational size, but then there's also, where you currently are starting from. And
Hmm.
certainly, having those processes and operational efficiencies, will come through time and scale, but also, um, whenever you look at these larger organizations, most likely you can see clear examples of these things as well.
Yes, I don't think it's a bad thing to look at. I'll call it the best of the best in terms of scaling their organizations. Um, and I think the sustainability when you do grow in that gradual progression is absolutely critical. And I don't think smaller companies, their patience for that is what they need to have.
Mhm.
Um, if it's private equity owned, VC, too many times they're looking for that quick win. And again, I kind of said they're transactional versus transformative. It takes a minute of patience to turn that corner and really scale to that next level. It is sometimes with people and the scale of your equipment, some very simple things, but what's not simple is as you're growing an organization, sometimes the resources that you need, if you haven't developed them, do you need to bring in different people? Hopefully, you're training and developing the individuals that are there for the future. And I think that's a big difference from small to large organizations, is that hopefully that development of them and anticipating the future a bit and making sure those resources are capable of that transformation. I've come into a lot of organizations, and what it is today isn't what they were yesterday. And that's okay. As long as they're growing, they're scaling, and making sure you're putting the right people and talent and expertise in place. So yeah, it's again, like I said, it's a tall order,
Yeah.
but it does take some patience and resilience.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about what you're doing currently with the InnovaPath, and what sort of things are you doing to support life sciences companies from early stage to commercialization and strategic partnerships.
Yeah, and for InnovaPath, we support both the sponsor as well as the vendors, the CDMO space. If I take a look at the sponsor side of it, uh, we look at the organization itself as well as the molecule. And I think when you're looking at startups or mid-sized companies, that organizational and science side of it is a big balancing act. Early on, I really do encourage the sponsors, and I'll kind of just pick on the startup companies or the very small pharma or biotech, is outsource, and not put that overhead into your organization. Rely on your vendors and rely on the vendor selection or partnership, as I like to call it, that you're making within the industry. So making sure from an organizational perspective, those startup companies are staffed appropriately and are looking at how does that organization need to grow through their journey. And that complex there's a lot of complexity that gets put into that when you're looking at their organization as well as their molecule. And what I mean by that is really that exit strategy. Are they looking to sell off the molecule? Are they in need of funding? Are they going to bring it to market? So building that organization as well as taking that molecule through the appropriate phases of development, you've got to look at the leadership, the subject matter expert resources, and like I said, that vendor selection and alliance management. Because if they are outsourcing, excuse me, most of what they're doing, then that alliance management becomes paramount for them.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely can understand that as well. That there need to be um, many organizations as they scale, um, you just won't have the resources that you need at your fingertips to be able to move things forward. So you have two main choices. One is, are we going to build it in house, or are we gonna is
Mhm.
this something where we're going to look overall outside, both in alliances as well as in possibly staffing in other ways.
Yeah, and I think that outsourcing model for small and mid-sized companies is personally is the right way to go. And it is aligning with the right suppliers and CDMOs out there. Uh, and I think one complexity that gets added to that is as you're dealing with different vendors, and most likely you're not going to find one vendor that can do absolutely everything. I think in this industry, there's a greater need for that, as I put it, that alliance management. And that really means that the vendors are working together. Each one of them is just an extension of the client's organization. The client also needs to treat them that way. They need to be involved in their internal discussions, and having that open communication. But also the vendors need to play nice in the sandbox and say, okay, I'm doing this part, you're doing that part. But those two pieces are have to haves in terms of the success of the program. So if it's a drug substance company that is transferring the molecule to a drug product organization and has never touched it before, um, even if you're in a CDMO that has all of those capabilities, they don't necessarily all have them in the same site. So you're having to do that integration anyway. You're having to do that alliance and that transfer of information and knowledge, that tech transfer of wherever the molecule is at this point. So I think there's a tremendous need for that alliance management in the industry, and it's so important to pick. To me, it's not vendor selection; it's partner selection. And the advice I give to smaller organizations is pick your vendor, and because it's for the long haul. And even if you're looking for an exit strategy, whatever pharma or biotech organization that's looking to acquire it is going to say, all right, where are you? and have you already figured out the blind spots. They want the most robust asset that they're going to be bringing in that needs the least amount of work for its success. So I think that's important when you're looking at, we have a supply chain, a robust supply chain, to be able to manufacture this product, scale it up, and there's a long-term vision. That to me is something that I work with clients and CDMOs on to say, okay, we're all in this.
Hmm. Yeah, so critically important. So whenever you look at these organizational, partnerships and alliances, how do you ensure seamless collaboration between the subject matter experts, and especially the technical excellence and cultural compatibility?
Yeah, I honestly, Don, the important thing with this is that upfront assessment that you do, and this is both sides. So whether it's the vendor or the sponsor, the first thing, I'll take the sponsor approach first, is what is your outsourcing strategy? And we talked a little bit about this. Am I outsourcing? Let's just for the conversation today, everything. Um, and the transparency of what you're transferring over to them is absolutely paramount. That client needs to understand from a cultural perspective and a journey perspective what it is they're looking for. And then, like I said, treat that vendor or vendors as if they are part of your organization. Hand over all of the information, your RFP, your tech transfer documents, whatever that tech package looks like. Too many times I see sponsors keeping things close to the chest. And it's like, all right, I'll give this to you when we're ready. And that really means when we're going to pick you. Again, I said earlier, pick your vendor. But the best thing you can be is transparent with them and give them the information that they need to be able to help you solve your problems. It's not just about putting a proposal together. It's about demonstrating. And you mentioned the technical aspect of it. Can we do it? Can we scale it? From a cultural perspective, to me, culture of any part of the selection process, whether it's technical, operational, financial, and cultural, the different pillars that I look at, they all go back to culture.
Mm,
What's your organization like? Are they thought leaders within the industry? Are they growing? Are they expanding? Are they scaling? Do they have the technical know-how? Um, and if they don't have it today, maybe they're going to be expanding. And I think those are great conversations to have with your vendors to say, look, I think we're a great fit. And I've talked to probably hundreds of companies to say, and if we are expanding, am I paying for it? Are you paying for it? Or are we paying for it? So it might already be in their CapEx plan to say, look, we're going to be there and we're going to be there fast. But again, it's that transparency and communication to say, what's that timeline look like? Clinical development takes a long time. So you're not ready for commercial, but you will be. And sometimes that partnership and saying we will be together. And there's so many times where technologies today maybe don't exist. No one has it. And it's that much more important to make sure you pick a vendor for the long haul.
I've certainly seen this before. I mean, some of what you're describing, I've certainly seen before where the sponsor held back critical data that, was impacting the ability to actually move things forward, which is an interesting sort of challenge whenever, you're on the the vendor side and you're trying your best to do everything that you possibly can. You would imagine that, somewhere in early development that the sponsor would have run across the actual issue that you're starting to see and describe to them, but it's almost like they're wanting for you to sort of struggle through it to understand a little bit more. And I although I understand that, I just to me it wastes a lot of time, effort, money. It causes a lot of frustration, instead of just saying, hey, look, we've run into this exact thing that you're seeing, and let me just be a partner with you and treat you just like
Mhm.
you were in the office next door, right?
Yeah, it's kind of that test that some clients do give the vendors, and I agree with you. sometimes that missing piece of information, there's a reason we're asking for it. Like we know something's missing and we need to see this. That sometimes will open that door, Don, to that conversation where we say, hey, did you think about this? And there's the silver bullet that the client's looking for is, oh, no, I didn't think of this, or, oh, you did get it right.
Hmm.
So I like you now. Where I'm much more interested in what you said is, we're partners here. Give me the kitchen sink. Let me take a look at it. And again, that culture aspect of this is absolutely critical because, like I said, you're going to be in this for the long haul. Either you're taking it to market or you're bringing in a company that's going to bring this to market for you, with you. And that vendor that you're going to be transferring, those contracts that you're going to be transferring over to them are pretty significant. I've seen horror stories in those types of transfers, and I've seen some that have gone very, very well. And again, I think it's that upfront work that you do. It's absolutely critical.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are some of the innovative projects or initiatives that you're currently working on, and how do they align with your broader goals in the life sciences industry?
Yeah, and I think we're talking. I want to call this kind of that playbook for CDMO selection and sometimes recalibrating partner relationships. I think in this industry, Don, I can't tell you the number of times a client came to me, whether I was working for a CDMO and they're not happy with their current vendor. Well, what happened in the beginning that got you here? What groundwork did you not lay down? What governance did you not put in place? We're not all levels within organizations on the same page. And I think, the culture part of it, as well as that alliance management, doesn't, and that governance doesn't play enough of a part and a role in your upfront selection. So you end up, as I call it, kind of recalibrating that relationship. So some of the things that, I'm working on is how do we streamline that process so you don't get there. It sounds pretty simple, but you don't have, and a lot of times, Don, it comes back to that transparency between the two organizations and making sure everybody looks at alliance or governance as a negative thing where, okay, something went wrong. Now we need to, put out the fire and bring a governance structure in. I'm of the mindset is you need to bring that in up front and lay out the communication, that foundation. How are decisions going to be made? And really putting that in place. On the drug development side, the other things that I'm looking at is really that AI-driven drug development and real-world evidence, the decentralized clinical trials to accelerate innovation. There's so much information out there, and it's really okay what works. And I still think you can't take the human element out of it. So really looking at how, within my organization, how do I help companies continue to get to market faster? And
Mhm.
Don, the way I look at AI and technology is this is just continuous improvement. Everybody's
Right.
just a little behind, and a little is a lot. So I think it's important. That's one of the things I'm looking at. And it's really with subject matter experts that work with me to say, okay, from a drug development perspective, this tool works well. And how do we incorporate it into the decisions that an organization is making? So I think there's still work to be done on that, but when I look at some of the things that I'm looking at, um, and how can we help, especially those small and mid-sized companies that don't have the formulators, don't have the breadth of experience or capabilities. Um, and I think the flip side of that is the agency saying, okay, this works, and we're going to accept this. So I think we're still in that. We've got to do both right now. Where unfortunately, I think too many companies want to flip the switch, and it's just not possible to to do that. But I'm looking at some of those continuous improvement activities and things that we can do to help clients, CDMOs. I mean, even on the CDMO side, there's a ton of technology out there for sales, marketing, forecasting. Sales automation is the easiest way to put it. And I can say, being on the receiving side of some of that sales automation, it's not perfect yet. I get emails all the time, follow up emails after I've already spoken with someone.
Sure.
So it didn't
Right.
work.
Right.
So it's like,
Yeah.
we did speak. So the computer didn't catch up with the email and the meeting we already had. So I don't, a little glitches like that, where I'm very much that human element. And again, during drug development, talk to each other. So get on a phone. I'm not just going to plug in a molecule into an algorithm and say, yep, this will cure cancer. Uh,
Right.
it's not there yet. So yeah,
Yeah.
some of those things are what I'm watching and seeing what works and what will be impactful. And those impacts matter during that growth journey that an organization, whether it's a sponsor, you don't have to do everything.
Hmm.
There are absolutely things you have to do. And that's when I look at incorporating, again, those technologies and those continuous improvements, so organizations can scale and stay agile. We talked about earlier. We talked about that earlier in the conversation, is scaling and the agility of that. To me, continuous improvement helps you stay agile and efficient, or it should.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what we do is on the digital marketing side is around content, content marketing and things like that. And there's a ton of things that we're using AI for as well. And like you said, I mean, it's not perfect. Currently working on the final round of development, on a product that will be truly ours, that will help us
Hmm.
support organizations even better. But at the end of the day, I could still see where there will be gaps, right? I mean, and we as humans will have to continue to intervene, but that's part of the evolution, I feel like, of, this technology. It's not going to be, ultimately perfect out of the gate, but,
Hmm.
you will gain some levels of efficiency, especially, not having to sit and do all of the individual steps yourself as it processes through.
Yep, absolutely.
Very good. So, how do you integrate complex vendor networks into cohesive strategies, and what benefits does that bring to your clients?
Yeah, we touched on this a little bit. I think, and I'll get back to that alliance management and having your different vendors work together. I don't think we're there yet as an industry. I think there was a little bit of a blip of this, and people kind of talked about it after COVID, or during COVID. Is okay, guys, we need to work together and we need to find, we've got to solve a problem. And I think at the end of the day, that ultimately is fundamentally what we're all trying to do. I saw a post actually this morning with somebody talking about this exactly: is there's not enough partnerships.
Mm,
There's a lot of acquisitions, and with acquisitions comes integration. Are you integrating the culture? It's not always that simple. Running an organization of that scale, where they are doing everything for everybody, do you really have the right skill set and talent across all of those uh, disciplines, drug substance, drug product, whatever it might be, that expertise, packaging? There's so many different things that go into manufacturing a product, and being able to have a robust team and the best of the best to be able to do all of that. Where sometimes I just think it's okay to, I have a great drug substance vendor, I have a great drug product vendor. Great. How do they work together? And oh, by the way, we need a packager. We need somebody for discovery for the next molecule. I think those alliances are something, and that's what I talk with clients is, do you have to switch vendors, or can we integrate those vendors? Are there partnerships? And you start seeing that a little bit through investments that companies have made in other companies. And ultimately, typically their plan is to acquire it or merge with it, whatever it might be. But I think some of those alliances, Don, are going to help this industry, and it's getting that culture in place between those organizations. You've got to worry about the contracts that need to be put in place, the development contracts, the MSAs, and can you make them It's kind of like, I mean, whenever I wrote an MSA, I have partners that I call out on there. It might be consultants, whatever it might be. So the contracts are already built where I can outsource things that we aren't doing. So each one of those vendors is now just outsourcing. Maybe they're outsourcing drug substance, maybe they're outsourcing drug product, but you know who that vendor is. They're a qualified vendor, they're a partner with you. So I think that's going to help the industry quite a bit. And it's going to, I just don't see that happening fast enough to say, hey, we need each other. Let's do this together. So that's certainly something from a consulting perspective that I look at. And even when I worked for CDMOs, if there was something that we couldn't do, that's the culture and the methodology that I used is, okay, we need someone else here. And even in my practice today is, yes, I have a tremendous vendor network or subject matter expert network, and bringing the right people and expertise in when appropriate, and why we bringing them in.
Yeah, so important. Um, with the industry's focus on digital transformation, AI, and precision medicine, how are you adapting to these trends at Innova Health?
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about this. I think there's a lot of technology out there, the adoption of it, the human element that still needs to be involved to say, hey, did it get it right?
Mm,
Um, I think when you look at, and when I say this, Don, the level of sophistication that has been brought into this versus companies that had an algorithm before to say, look, we've all had decades and decades of experience, and we put this into an algorithm that says, hey, will this work? The one thing that I look at is AI is still only looking at historical information. Unless somebody puts what's new and it's not tried or true yet, how do you involve that and integrate that into the solution that this is trying to, again, just to put it simply, the cure for cancer? We still have work to do on this. And to me, going in eyes wide open as a consultant and uh, you know, working with clients to say, hey, look, this isn't perfect. And that's okay. You kind of said this too. Look, it's not going to be out of the box perfect, but does it gain us a lot more traction than we were able to do before? Absolutely. It gives us a lot of information very fast that we can sift through, and like we talked about, take that information and sit down with your vendors, your partners, as an organization, and say, okay, will this work? Did it give us good information? And hopefully it results in something that is transformative in some of your thinking. I think there's and again, like I said, to me, and I'm dumbing it down, it's just continuous improvement that
mm,
we've got behind on. Um, and it takes a lot when you're scaling organizations. It does take time. It takes money to be able to grow like that. And you need to take that in that staged approach, and some of this integration of all of these technologies. We should have been looking at sooner than we are today. I think it's just kind of dumped on everybody to say, okay, we have so much and we've never built the systems and processes to put them in effectively yet. But it's again, it's gradual. So it takes some patience.
So, John, the next few questions are going to focus a little bit on you. What's the greatest piece of leadership advice you ever received?
Uh, I still, and this was probably early in my career, is leaders don't need all of the answers, uh, but they need to ask the right questions. Um, and again, I'm going to lean on culture a little bit. The greatest leaders that I've seen, and you look at the successful companies out there, is those leaders create environments where the right conversations happen. Um, and we talked earlier in the conversation of bringing in people from outside the industry. Well, sometimes that delivers like a diverse perspective on a view of things, or a different one. And I think where getting back to the basics, people feel valued. Teams feel empowered to drive results. In we're seeing as this world evolves and the new talent that are coming in, they're looking for leaders that are empathetic. They're adaptable. They're resilient. And we talked about this. I think it's so important because you look at the AI driven, I want to call it disruption almost, Don, because we're so far behind. This kind of dropped in, and now you have leaders that have never done this before. And or if they did it, not enough years have gone by to say, hey, this really worked and here's what we did with it. But again, it's incorporating that continuous improvement. You have a geopolitical environment that I still think hasn't settled. So when you're looking at a leader to bring into the organization, it's not as simple as saying, well, they did this before.
Right.
Did they? Um,
Right.
I don't know how, because it's different, and that's okay. So looking at, I don't need all of the answers. The CEO doesn't have to be, and I think them understanding that too. Um, I think that's important. Successful leadership to me, it's really, and I just talked about this. It's kind of guiding those teams through uncertainty while staying mission focused.
Hmm.
So it's funny. Everybody has a plan. You have a vision. I am a fan of strategic plans that you revisit. But I think it was Mike Tyson said is, everybody has a plan to get punched in the mouth. Um,
Right.
and when you have AI and geopolitical, that's and even COVID with supply chain, you got punched in the mouth. How do you have a team that can scale, or the better word is probably mobilize for something like that? And when you can bring that culture into a room and say, okay, guys, we have a problem that we did not anticipate. What do we do? Um,
Hmm.
that's a different conversation because you need to pivot, you need to mobilize. I think great leaders, when I said they ask the right questions and they manage through change, the first thing I'm going to say is, look, I don't have all the answers either. But I've gone into organizations where I think it's important to be able to speak up and say, what you're asking us to do, we don't have all of the capability to do yet, even in terms of the team. So who do we need to bring in? Even if it's a consultant in, I need a fractional, I need someone for a moment to help with this. Even the best, biggest companies bring in consultants.
Yeah.
It's not just what they recommend they do. It's that implementation of what they do. And I think that, Don, getting back to one of your earlier questions, is that transformative growth that I've seen in larger organizations versus smaller ones. And I'll kind of say that, to wrap up this question and see if you have anything else. Be transformational, hire for growth, not to replace, and develop your team for those rough roads.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I, I definitely support all of that. That one, I feel like the best leaders are great at asking the right questions. That they're individuals that stay focused and don't get distracted. It's the leader that constantly is reacting to everything instead of being forward thinking and trying to help guide the team around the noise that
Mhm.
really isn't helpful, right? I mean, the individual that's constantly hair on fire and hey, look, we've got this constant emergency. There are emergencies every day, so let's figure
Mhm.
out how do we sort of normalize a portion of this and keep our focus, but also understand that there are things that we need to react to as well in the world.
Yeah, and it's that chaos that a lot of times it's the constant. I'm going to call it the flavor of the month is
Hmm.
the constant shift of direction. Again, you have a mission, you have goals. Inserting that continuous improvement, we talked about AI, into those goals is to say, okay, we have a new tool that we didn't have before. The goal hasn't changed. The end goal probably has not changed. How do I get there? It can change. and okay, what do we need to do to and again, it's about creating efficiency, scale. It's not just about using the new hammer I just got just because I bought one. So
Yeah.
again, simplifying things, but I think it's important to continue to evolve, and you need the right team that's going to be able to pivot. And like I said, I love the word mobilize, because that's pretty critical in the times that we're seeing today.
Yeah, absolutely. John, what inspires you?
Uh, I love challenges. And we talked earlier on you know Don, I can't even put words to the transition I made coming out of healthcare into the life sciences space. And people ask, what was some of the most exciting times? I love solving problems. And again, having that team, I don't have all of the answers. That inspires the daylights out of me. You have incredible minds out there, incredible technologies that are far beyond my comprehension, um, but then being able to bring them to realization, and my experience in engineering, design, build, and formulation development, and bringing these revolutionary things to market. That's inspiring in this industry. It's exciting. You've got a big mix of technologies, and it's just continuing to change, staying ahead of that. Like I said, even with AI, we're all tripping over ourselves with that one. We needed to plan a little bit better, and I think that vision.
Hmm.
It's inspiring to me to be that visionary leader within organizations, and make sure we're watching the store, and not get caught off guard, and we just reverted back, light years from that growth that we were expecting. That's a lot of fun and exciting, and watching the team thrive. Sorry, that was a big answer, but that's the excitement that motivates me.
Great. What concerns you?
Uh, well, I think we're all managing blind spots, um, and I don't want to say that it's concerning. It's I'll get back to kind of watching the store, is making sure that we're equipped for that. And we're just staying ahead of that. Uh, uh, and again, if you can't stay ahead of it, is we're able to mobilize. So I think some of the COVID, no one could have prepared for that. So it's that unknown, it's that blind spot. But again, as that visionary, is I think that's one of my abilities, is to hopefully anticipate some of those things and say, hey, this might be coming down the pike, and can we pivot if we had to,
Hmm.
and what do we do? So I think it's the nature of it's not even this industry. So yeah, it's not the fear, it's just anticipation, and being able to pivot, and again, agility. How do we do that?
Very good.
And again, I'm not afraid to bring in the right talent, and that gets back to being a leader. And I don't have all the answers, so.
Makes all the difference, as well as just the ability to kind of know where your strengths are and know also where
Mhm.
there's a gap, and just being able to say, hey, look, we're going to leverage other teams. Last question: what excites you?
Uh, I I'll kind of go back to that technology piece. I absolutely love the advancements that are being made. In my current role, I'm working with startups. Obviously, from a confidentiality, I can't
Sure.
divulge or talk about those. Absolutely, in a million years, I'd never believe we are where we are today, and what's possible. Um, and what excites me is bringing, and I kind of said this, is bringing um, those technologies to market,
Yeah.
and helping companies on that journey, because so many of them, I don't want to see them derail because they weren't on the right path. So, from a consulting perspective, a mentoring perspective of startups, I love seeing innovation, That's thrilling. And again, it's beyond my comprehension. I couldn't invent that, but my God, can I help you bring it to life
Mhm.
through vendors and marketing and that commercial and organizational leadership? Yes, is let me do what I do well, and please keep innovating.
Yeah.
I don't want to slow that down. And I think too many innovators start getting into, hey, I need to run a business.
Right.
Please keep innovating.
Yeah.
Let's scale your organization, whether it's outsourcing it. Please continue to do what you're doing, and build a external organization that works with you.
Yeah, a definite distraction for certain businesses and certain leaders is just having that focus on turning the crank, and which to me is sort of the lower level tactical work that honestly you should be handing off to somebody else instead of wasting your brain cells or spending your brain cells on trying to get the daily work done. Let's try and more or less operationalize with people that can do that work and
Hmm.
put you back to work innovating as well.
Yeah, that to me is exciting in this industry, and certainly the med device and the pharma and biotech that have collided tremendously. And even when you look at the technology, wearable devices, kind of elaborating on what excites me because I've been in the healthcare, the engineering, and life sciences as a whole with pharma and biotech. I love when those worlds start to collide.
Mm.
So it's pretty amazing.
Absolutely. Well, John Phillips, thank you so much for being on the Life Science Success Podcast. I greatly appreciate you being here and for sharing the story about your career and your background, but also what you're doing currently with InnovaPath Consulting. And I wish you all the best.
I appreciate it. Great to talk with you today, Don.
Thanks a lot.